Everyone, everybody, welcome back. I'm Dante, also known as Mecca Don, the Don Mecca. Some may even call me Rick James. Why? Because I'm cold-blooded. Some may call me Coach, but if you know, you do know. Hey, you guys know what it is. We're in the age of cancel culture, judged by the court of public opinion. And I will be careful with my words, but just in case I drop a noun, an adjective, a pronoun that may be out of place, or even an expletive, please don't hold me to it. You guys know what it is. I'm always here to pod. And that is my thing. I'm just here to pod. As always, guys, I do thank you for tuning in. I've talked about this thing of organic growth for the longest, and I'm starting to feel the effects of it. So I will say again, thank you all. And I value you. And speaking of valuing people, I want you guys to start thinking of that in your day-to-day lives. It has been my upbringing and to learn that time is filled with swift transitions. And this just makes me think, what kind of impact can I make on others while I'm here on earth? So with that being said, it came to us recently, and they say it usually happens in threes. But for what it's worth, if you live this thing called life, you'll understand that it is just one of those things, as it is written, that there's a time and place for everything. So I'd like to shout out to some of you who are making a difference in lives other than yourselves. But if you do know, you do know. And for those that understand what it is to lose someone or know of someone or even follow someone that has most recently made a transition, you know that it is hard. But I just want to highlight some that has helped shape America. First one hit me kind of hard when I learned about it, but I was starting to question, where is this gentleman, right? I'm talking about those of the vocoder or the vocal box. When I went to go witness and watch some of my favorite fuse jazz artists, that being the RGE, the Robert Glasper experience, right? So with that being said, they always had a front runner. And if you don't know who Robert Glasper is, because he sits in the back, I just love the humility of the man. But at the same time, he is hilarious when it comes to performing and his character that he brings true to life. And he's a beast on the keys. But if you've ever went to an RGE, you will notice that they have a gentleman up front, right? Kind of with that earthy swag, right? Cowboy hat, usually in his bag, but yet one may say he's doing showboating. But Robert Glasper allows different elements of the fusion of jazz to come together and give you the RGE. Guys, I'm talking about Casey Benjamin. When Robert Glasper put this thing together, him being a hip hop head, but yet all of the way jazz as you possibly can be. Some of the hottest drummers that you could possibly have, Robert Glasper has one of the best on the planet. But Casey Benjamin was on sax and keys and vocoder. And a lot may say, even when they did their version of Teen Spirit, you mostly heard Casey Benjamin on that auto-tune style vocoder that you heard in live shows and even on Black Radio, the album. But let me just pause here and say this is a huge loss for me, being that I am a huge fan of jazz, let alone fusion jazz. I am going to miss the RGE minus Casey Benjamin. I actually thought, and I apologize if I'm wrong, I actually thought it was a beef or a rift between Casey Benjamin and the RGE crew. I'll say this because sometimes if you see the look on Casey Benjamin's face, it's almost as if you guys recognize jazz musicians that are a group, a trio, or a quad for that matter, you'll notice that you always got that hot dog. And I wondered, was it a hot dog show for Casey Benjamin? But I have to fall all the way back and said that's not important right now. I just want to honor, tip my hat, and salute to now the late Casey Benjamin. Rest in peace, thoughts and prayers are with his family, and he passed on the 31st of March at the young age of 46. Also in memorandum, we want to keep things rolling for Joe Anthony Cox, also known as Tony Cox. This is a little person. You guys may remember him. For you old heads out there, let me take it back. If you remember the Leon Kennedy joint called The Penitentiary, well, Leon Kennedy had to box. He was the little person that was crawling under the mat. He was also the person shooting the bones or shooting the dice. He had his part there. But Tony Cox's body of work is phenomenal. He has a long list of a curriculum vitae that goes on for days and days and days. If you name a blockbuster, or if you go and research a blockbuster, I am not kidding you, you're going to see Tony Cox's name in it. If there was a motion picture that entailed or involved little people, more than likely you saw Tony Cox. Some may remember Tony Cox from Friday. And let me be clear, the man had swag for days and did not shy away from the camera as a little person. Tony Cox was the husband of Miss Parker. Miss Parker. Tony Cox was the husband that challenged the late, great Bernie Mac for trying to have a jump off with Miss Parker. Bernie Mac was supposed to be making his rounds, spreading the word, but he ran into Smokey and Ice Cube, or Chris Tucker and Ice Cube, trying to get him a little hit of the 20-twin, but he saw a fine little something across the street, and he didn't say, Lord, have mercy on me. He said, Lord, have mercy on me. So we remember that, and all of a sudden, they mind their business across the street. The good old late, great Bernie Mac, known as the Good Reverend, went across the street, had a jump off with Miss Parker. Miss Parker. But as we know, that was Tony Cox, the man's, his character as a wife. So you guys remember the debacle from that, but you may also remember him from In Living Color. You may also remember him from the episode of Martin, where Bushwick, the late great Bushwick, from the Ghetto Boys, right? When they went up to beat down Big Tommy for taking old girl, and also in Living Color, if I didn't say it already, but this gentleman again had a body of work that superseded many other actors in the acting genre or the acting area. But I am sad to report, as well as some of you may know, he's no longer with us. So rest in peace to Tony Cox. And our thoughts and prayers are with him along with his family. And again, the memorandum continues. Not to be morbid, but if our voices go silent, we don't have an opportunity to salute or even pay homage to some of these that shape America. So let me bring it down to the dirty South, ATL to be exact. And I'm talking about the pioneer, the producer, and also family member of the Dungeon family. We lost a good one, y'all. Rico Wade, who co-produced Outkast, CeeLo Green, Goody Mob, Sierra, some of the other greats that came through ATL, and was also a co-writer on TLC's hit Waterfalls. But Rico Wade, thank you for your contributions to hip-hop. Your life was not in vain. You did some world-changing things to what hip-hop became to sound like even to this day. And it went on to highlight some of his accomplishments as well as his involvement with hip hop. In the documentary, The South Has Something to Say. So rest in peace, Rico Wade, who passed at 52 years young. Rest in peace. And also our thoughts and prayers are with the city, Atlanta, and also those of the Dungeon family, friends, and family. I also have to continue with Orenthal, James Simpson, also known as OJ, also known as The Juice, OJ. And this is where we have to actually fall back and say, is it too soon? What is the decency that I should have? Is it about me expressing my opinion about a certain vantage point or a certain thing? But nonetheless, he was known as Mr. Hurdle over suitcases in the airport. He was known as Mr. Heisman Trophy winner, MVP And in the NFL, 5-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowl selectee. He was also a Hall of Fame inductee, an actor. Some would call him even a comedian in his day and time. And he went on to do commentating on Monday Night Football. And just to mention a list of highly notable accolades. OJ had a lot of accomplishments, but they were diminished because of something that came later on in life. And it was one of the most iconic moments in history. You all know what it was. It was breaking news. We now bring you live broadcast of a low-speed chase with the police and a white 1993 Ford Bronco. This shook airways. This caused America, not just Black America, this caused America to stop and tune in to the televisions just to see what was going on. Keep in mind what was so significant about the white Bronco, not too much to deviate from OJ's passing, but I'm giving you vantage points and POVs of two individuals, yet he was one or two different individuals that we learn to know about, that being the heroic Buffalo Bills and Hall of Fame inductee, many accolades to sports and highlights and accomplishments, and then that which diminished a lot of those accolades. But my rhetorical question to you as I give you these two vantage points is, how do you look at this law, or how do you look at this life? How do you look at this life as it pertains to the two things that I talk about all the time, the court of public opinion and then the court of law? Well, when you think about the court of law, you think about the trial of the century led by Johnny Cochran and Robert Shapiro. This had the world shook. There were so many quotables that came actually out of the trial of the century and so many learning points. And I can tell you right now, even me being a criminal justice major, it influenced a lot of people to want to get into law just because at that day and time, this was the rise of court TV. This was the rise of your judges, your Judge Mills Lanes, your Judge Judy, and some of the other court TV shows. But nonetheless, this was the rise also of crime TV. This was the rise of Gotcha and Watch It, Witness, and Unfold on TV. This was the rise of Shock TV. So was it the fact that it was breaking news of a low-speed chase of a 1993 Ford Bronco? Or was it the fact that it was announced that it was the juice on the loose? Was it the fact that we were waiting for something horrific to happen? Why were you tuning in? Comment down below. And as I say always, for your engagement to what the heDONizm podcast brings to you, I need you to do three things and possibly a fourth. I would love for you to like. I would love for you to subscribe. And just for the sake of engagement, as you guys have before, comment down below. And I'll just add, don't be a hater. But was it the fact that we were tuning in to a low-speed chase? Or was it the fact that we were looking for something tragic to happen? Have you ever heard of the term watching a train wreck? Was it the fact that we wanted to witness something bad? But yet again, this was a point where America was divided down the middle. Some wanted justice, vice the unjust that we were witnessing for years, a la Rodney King, the beatdown that was caught on a video camcorder. This wasn't even a mini. Someone actually had to pick up a device recorder that weighed approximately 20 pounds and insert a VHS tape and said, "This ain't right." Roll the tape, and Rodney King was getting beat. For any young kids out today, or even for those salt and peppers out there of today, go and share some of what happened so that they can understand what we had to go through. It's not going to make a significant impact on today because we've seen a lot worse things by police officers, a la George Floyd, a la the fake cop of Trayvon Martin. Sandra Bland, the mystery of that. So a lot of what these kids see today don't understand that this is a repeated source of history that has happened, and the narrative has not came out great for those that identify with Black America. But some wanted this thing split down the middle. Some wanted justice, vice what they have seen. But the end result of this thing, after O.J. went to trial, also known as the trial of the century, he was acquitted and not charged of criminal charges, but yet later on went on and was found liable of civil liability for wrongful death and battery against Goldman and Brown. I'm not here, guys, to reincarnate what happened to this man, but I am highlighting the accolades of that of O.J. Simpson. And then also one thing, and there's always a narrative. Do you remember where you were when? For some of the salt and peppers out there, they can say, I remember where I was when MLK was shot, when JFK was shot. And as we come forward, when the Challenger exploded, when the Twin Towers went down. But this is one where people can say, I remember what I was doing when the trial of the century was taking place. Now, keep in mind, this trial was one record-setting for California, being one of the longest trials in the state. And also the teams that came in, and also the testimonies that we saw. It was almost, I won't even say must-see TV, it was addictive TV. And again, I'm not here to sway what your thoughts are, but my question is, how do we look at this loss? Some out there, and I won't say any names just because I'm not at a power position where I can go lawyer up and fight some of these arrogant people. But for those that are saying good riddance, you know who you are. Is that the approach? For those that are boohooing and crying because they've lost one of the greatest in their eyes as an icon and a role model to them, what do we say to them? One thing that I can say is this is a narrative that will be discussed. How about we go back to the Life magazine of how they tried to portray O.J.? What is the narrative then? What was the narrative then and the narrative now about someone who's gone? Do we say the late, great O.J., or do we just say O.J. died? When is this fume? Again, I'm not here to sway this, but at the heDONizm podcast, you guys know I love to disrupt thought and also, as the late, great John Lewis said, get into good trouble. But I'll say again and ask you guys, how do we remember O.J.? And as I get off of this subject, it wasn't me, or as me and a good friend say, it's not something I heard. This is something we know. Remember, O.J. was blatantly bold and saying, I'm not black, I'm O.J. His words, not mine. So this ain't something I'm making up, but I am disrupting thought. And if you have an opinion about this, I would love to hear it. Share it with me. I know this is rhetorical. I know this is a monologue, but comment down below. And speaking of those that are involved in sports, that being O.J. and the impact that he had, what about the current impact that we have right now in the world of hip hop, more specifically the rap world? Now, let me give you a soliloquy and I'll dive into it. When you think of country, when you think of rock, light rock, when you think of other genres, if you will, that Billboard categorized as genres, is there ever beef between artists as much as it is today in hip hop, more specifically rap? Well, I'll tell you what it is. Back in the days, in order to be the best, you had to beat the best. And we have gotten so watered down now with rap music being the vehicle to make millions versus the talent. We have lost so significantly. So here's what I honor about the artists that are in place right now, trying to reign supreme or who's the greatest. Does this make it a sport? Well, I'll say this. Even in competition, being the best sometimes come with beating the best. But it was a sad day for hip hop, a couple of days, not let alone a week ago, when J. Cole put the parachute on and said, Geronimo, Kung Fu Kenny's Mickey Fick, the big three, in splat, it's just big me. The collective response was to Drake, sit down, be humble. The response to J. Cole was sit down, be humble. The response to anybody who wanted it with K. Dot was sit down, be humble. But Drake, he's a calculator. He's a calculator. Don't take this Canadian light. Old Drizzy, let it breathe. He sat back. He's a man of many faces. So you have to be careful who you have in your crosshairs. Is it the guy that was paraplegic? The actor from was it Degrassi High? Is it Drake, the SNL persona of a comedian? Is it the Mike Spitter? Is it the lyrical assassin? And some may say he has a ghostwriter, but let me ask you this. Does Denzel have a ghostwriter for his role in Training Day? Or was his role to deliver? Did Halle Berry have a ghostwriter when it came to Monsters Ball? Or did she just get on her knees and go, oh my, oh my, oh my, and the award goes to Halle Berry? You guys get what I'm saying? But when it comes to rap, it is something, Origin, that you have to put the work in. You are the specialist. You are the technician. You are the lyrical assassin. But Drake let it breathe, and he came back, and he sang, and I quote, in his response, and I'll be honest with you guys, after Metro Boomin, Future, and K. Dot put out the joint, take that, or like that, my apologies, pardon me. It was a time factor as to when is Drake gonna drop. These guys are doing tours. These guys are doing collabs. These guys are getting out of artist deals. So at this point, it's pretty much anything goes. So here we go. Drake dropped one and said, how the F you big steppin' with the size 7 men's on? I'm assuming that that's going to K. Dot. How the F you big stepping with a size 7 men's on? Hilarious. Then Drake let it breathe a little bit and said this. But Drake said, let me return the shot. And when I'm referencing terms of a gun, terms of killing, I'm using metaphors to mention what it is when it comes to this level of war as a metaphor. But Drake put him in his crosshairs. Not only did he put K. Dot in his crosshairs, he put in Rick Ross, Metro Boomin, and many others. There's some beef with some individuals and some shots that were thrown in this lyrical assassin that I couldn't understand who he was talking about. But yet after a little research, I understood who he was gunning for. Drake asked him politely, I'm coming. You sure you want this smoke? So, ladies and gentlemen, all I'm saying is this as I beef up and gin up excitement about all of this is we have been under the age, and I want to say decades. Hip-hop just hit 50. So we have been under direction for a few years now of just watching people get money in the name of hip hop. But now we have somebody actually reigning for the crown as to who's the best. And they're calling them the big 3 minus 1 now. But Drake asked Drizzy, asked him politely, hey, yo, what the F is this? A 20v1? Let me stop right there. So right now in culture, and as a culture phenom, a lot of YouTubers are doing this 20v1, which is where one individual gets approximately 20 individuals, and they do this ultra lightning fast speed dating, and they're picking people out based on, well, you know what it is. I don't need to get into that, but it is a culture phenom right now to do the 20v1. Your knowns and your unknowns are participating in this event, and this live witness. It's funny. It's hilarious. It can be quite entertaining if you're into that, but nonetheless, Drake makes it relevant. So you can't say this was written way back when, because he's talking about right now relevancy. So he goes on to say, what the F is this? 20v1 in Splat. What is a prince to a king? He's a son in Splat. I'll say it again. What the F is this? 20v1 in Splat. What's a prince to a king? He's a son in Splat. And I'm trying to keep it cute, so rock with me. Get more love from the city that you from in Splat. Metro, shut your whole A up and make some drums in Splat. Creative pen. Creative pen. So again, Drake put them all in his crosshairs. And he was like, I'm going to take my shot. Whether I miss or not, J. Cole, I'm taking my shot. And sometimes you have to wait on orders as a sniper to take your shot. But at the same time, snipers sit. Snipers sit almost like that spider that's in a web that never moves. And you're like, well, damn, this spider looks terrifying. He hasn't moved in days. I'll tell you why. They don't need authorization to move. They don't need authorization to do a bio release. They are waiting to take the shot as a sniper. And guess what? They don't have to get the go from Command Central. When they get the shot, they what? Pew, pew. So Rick Ross calculated this thing as well. And I'll be honest with you, what's making this thing great, not good, is the fact of the response time. So Ricky Rose came back pretty fast and didn't sit down. He went on like days later, I want to say, and went on to say that Drake in his song, in his diss response track, went on to say that Drake had a nose job and also Drake had a BBL in his stomach to have some abs sculptured. Drake went on social media and responded and even added his mother and said, well, if I'd known you was going to get a nose job, we would have got a 2-for-1. So again, we see the Eminem factor here. Mom spaghetti. No, not that. People are saying, hey, good one, but watch this one. So these are calculated blows, nonviolent, for them to come back and retort to the response that others have. And now let me just mention this for the cheap seats. These are individuals that are M's up. They don't need our help. The only thing that I can say may get in the way of this could be a publicist. Someone who actually tells them, as our former president maybe should have, tone down the Twitter fingers, turn down the social commentary, turn down the opinionated narratives. So these guys are just responding, and I'll say it again, as I said before in a pod, in this day and time, you don't have to drive miles and miles or miles and miles to a studio, do extensive engineering and release a track. It can be done in an instant. So happy rap beef, if we can keep it along the lines of may the best pen win rather than that being taking it to the streets. Because we all know from Drizzy's camp, the Canadian boys, all the way to out west, the Compton boys, rocking with Ricky Rose, them Liberty City boys, and his ATL homies or homies. We don't want this thing to spill out and anybody take it personal. We want you guys to be known as good one. And if you know this is becoming too much for you, be the man about it. Think about your mental wealth and health and do what J. Cole did and say, you know what? Y'all got it. Ain't moving right. This ain't feeling right. Take that route. I have to give props and credit what credit is due. Recently, Stephen A. Smith was on the Drink Champs podcast with DJ EFN and NORE. Dope show. I'll be honest, it's something we all do, but didn't implement it like the fellas did on Drink Champs. But I gotta say this. Don't y'all think it's about time that we give Stephen A. his props and his just due? Don't you think it's time that we give the man his living flowers, as Nori did on Drink Champs? Love him or hate him, give it to the man. If you look at the diversity and how the look in age factors, that are on ESPN, if you look at some of the individuals that are on ESPN, you best believe Stephen A. Smith had something to do with it, especially if it had something to do with the AM lineup. Keep in mind, you don't see Shay Shay 5 days a week. You see Shay Shay 2 days a week. You know why? Because Stephen A. did apply that you won't see the Ryan Clarks. You won't see the Woodies. You won't see some of the other on-air analysts that you do had he put Shay in the 5-day lineup. That's love, but it's also equity being used properly. So shout out to you, Stephen A. Smith. He did an amazing job on Drink Champs. But one thing that I want to highlight is the man is a great debater. I think he wants all the smoke. Now, me, when it comes to debate, no one want no sauce. I'm going to give it to you. But rather than me going to Twitter, social media, or any of these other avenues where cats kind of go keyboard happy, keyboard courage, or thumb thugs, I have to say, let's sit down and have a conversation about it. Maybe you'll learn something about me, and maybe I'll learn something about you. And anybody out there, if you want it, we can get it. I'm just talking about in the form of debate. And if I don't know, guess what? You got me. You got me, Sam. You got me, Joe. You got me. But he did an amazing job. And I have to say, so on Drink Champs, they have a formatted game called Quick Time with Slime, right? Nori, also known as Slime. Stephen A. went on there and they, you know, it is, the rules are pretty much, and I think they've implemented it so you can play at home. If you agree, there is no drink. But if you disagree or you're picking two answers, you drink, but everybody drinks. But Stephen A. bodied the Quick Time with Slime. But I just have to say, and we're talking about humanizing people, right? We got to see Stephen A. Smith out of the 3-piece or the 2-piece suit with the low button up, right? We got to see Stephen A. without a tie. We got to see Stephen A. This guy is not a code switcher. We're going to talk about that in another day. Stand by. I am ginning up a pod to talk about code switching. Some of you out there need a conversation or a dialogue about yourselves. We will talk about it soon and very soon. But I think he did an amazing job with the Quick Time with Slime, and I thought it was phenomenal. When is it going to stop? If I was to ask you a question and tell you to fill in the blank, I bet you would get it right. America is still blank. Let me just go on with the story, and hopefully you'll pick up what I'm putting down. Or as the late great Joe Madison would say it, put it where the goats can get it. Here's some information. So Indiana State University, there's a student, and I can't pronounce her first name just because so many people pronounce it and enunciate it a certain way, but I'll just call her Miss Blanton or Student Blanton. She goes on a racist debacle about not the presidential elections, not biases, not microaggressions. Guess what she went on a racial debacle about? Beyonce. So Student Blanton went on a racist debacle about Beyonce, not because of Beyonce did something reckless. She went on to talk about something that Beyonce did creatively. And she's talking about Beyonce singing or delivering country music. The student at Indiana State University, Student Blanton, went on to say that if you're black, you're not country. If you're not black, you're not country. If you're not black, you're not country. I can go on to subjectivity about the creation of country music, but I think you all know already. But she didn't stop there. Roll the tape.
I'm sorry, but if you're black, you're not country. I don't care. And I wish I meant that in the nicest way. But babe, I know you were raised in the country, or your grandparents were, I guess, your great granny and grandpas, but they was picking, okay? They wasn't planting. Just keep that in mind. They wasn't making money. I was getting sold for money. You ain't country. Boots and a motherfucking jeans and a cutoff to a frat party. Huh? No.
I can't make this up. Indiana State University, and right now, as we speak, or previously, as it was reported, students are now protesting, saying, hey, yo, if we are a school that is against race discrimination and also discrimination at a whole, then pull up on your school's policy and do something about this. Rather than the president or deans just rolling out our school's policy quoted by you. No, what are we doing about it? What are the actions that are taking place for this divisive and behavior of blatant racism? Said, well, your grandparents and great-grandparents were the pickers and not the planters. It would be different if she stopped that country. We all know that everybody in this world is entitled to an opinion, including myself. But do you think I'm going to get online and say some reckless foolishness that I have not marinated and germinated pure thought on? Now, you guys know me. I'll come and do a pod addendum if I said something out of pocket. And as I lead with my pod, I said we're in the age of cancel culture, judged by the court of public opinion. That is a disclaimer to let you know I'm not perfect. I am a podcaster. But at the end of the day, I'm Dante. So the students are saying that this is something that they don't want the Indiana State University to do once again. Obviously, they've had issues before. We are talking north of the mid of America. They don't want this swept under the rug. They want action. And you know, this brings up another thought as I get up out of here. I want to talk briefly. I'm not going to stay on it too long because I think it's a whole nother pod and episode. But I want to talk briefly about decorum. Where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong when it comes to decorum? Have we lost it? Does decorum even matter anymore? Does the way we show up, is it all about bringing my authentic self to the blank? What about decorum? Cleanliness is the closest thing to godliness? Or cleanliness is the closest thing to a pure and unprovoked mind? What about the appearance that you carry for yourself, meaning that maybe, just maybe, you have some dignity about what you do, how you do it, and the way that you do it. When you think of traveling, when was the last time you walked through an airport and it looked like a Greyhound bus station? What am I saying? Some people don't give a rat's ass as to how they carry themselves, even when it comes to a matter of travel. Could it be the way we show up is the way we're treated? Which, if that's the case, that's a whole nother conversation. You shouldn't treat people funky just because they look funky. If you're walking through the airport with some dirty ass pajama pants on and some yellow bunny slippers and they look brown, then something is going on there. Like, I understand the comfortability while traveling, but hey, yo, have you heard of athleisure wear? Have you heard of comfortability clothing? Have you heard of a non-formal attire to make yourself go, you know what? I can stretch this way, that way, and still feel comfortable, but at the same damn time, look like something. When was the last time you've been to a 5-star restaurant and saw every Joe Schmo in there with a dirty-ass hat on? Or looking a hot mess when you got on your most presentable for the occasion? Could be your anniversary, could be your birthday, could be payday. It could be any occasion where you took some energy and put it into you going out, but yet you're seated next to the individuals that just don't give a. What about those that are in places of worship now, with your cell phones out all day? I understand we're in the age of digital technology where your form or inspirational book may be in that digital format, or maybe you're following along the worship service with a cell phone. But if I look over and I see you playing, I think it was called the Temple Run, or watching cartoons, or watching the game, why even show up if you're not all the way there to get something out of it? What about for those that don't have respect for sanctuaries? You just act anyway, govern yourself anyway, no decorum, no respect for the house of worship. What about public decency in general, i.e. Walmart? It's almost like the uniform for Walmart is PJs. To rock your pajamas. People are already going in Walmart with an attitude. An experience that happened to me just the other day. I'm in the fruits and vegetables section, and I'm sitting there using my colloquialisms and my broken English. And I go, yo, I need these nanners. A lady said, I said, excuse me, you don't have to come in me. I said, ma'am, you think I said manners. I said nanners. She was ready to pop off. But guess what? The young lady and I had the best laugh in the world. I said, hey, yo, is it that day of time? Well, I got to put my hands up and say, don't shoot. It was a misunderstanding. But we had a good laugh at it. But what if it was my worst day? What if it was hers and we both clashed and the decency wasn't there? Or if I was looking like I wanted the sauce right now. It was on site and somebody did that to me, let alone a woman to a man or a man to a woman. I think you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. Entertainment, sporting events. And oh my goodness, let's talk about it. And I'm out of here, I promise. Funeral processionals. Listen, also known as the motorcade. I'm not sure about certain cultures or how certain people do it. But as for me, things that I witnessed, including some of my own loved ones, and some of you may not be able to relate to this, but just rock with me if you will. Leaving the sanctuary, going to the gravesite is a ceremony. Some are led by escorts, law enforcement agencies, public works, or even the funeral directors. But I have witnessed too many times people not respect or at least understand that ceremony, getting that loved one to the burial grounds. I understand it's your choice, it's your prerogative, but for those that actually takes the body from the sanctuary to the burial grounds, everybody, I am asking you to please honor or at least have some decorum or decency to understand that these cars with their hazard lights on is not a fashion show. Now, I've seen it done so many different ways. I've seen it done up north. I've seen it done down south. It's very different. I've even witnessed horse and carriage and people walking behind. I've had the honor of doing honor guard in the United States Navy. What a humiliating experience, but yet beautiful at the same time. But just to think that on a local level, you don't have to know the individuals to understand. And I understand in this day and time, everybody's in a hurry. We got to get to where we got to get to. But everybody, I am asking you to have some decency and understanding for those that partake in the ceremony of traveling to the burial grounds. People are breaking the lines. People are recklessly flying past the processional. People are braking, hitting, crashing, flipping people off, blowing their horns. Hey, this is their last time with this individual who's no longer with them. So I ask to just have a level of decorum as you look in yourself in the mirror before you walk out the door. It's not about people pleasing. Don't get it twisted. But it is about having a level of decency as to what you do, when you do it, and how you do it. Young folks, I'll say it again. Young folks, it is okay for you to make a decision to be who you are when you leave your premises, your house, your dorm room, your apartment. But I will say this, have some decorum about what you do, when you do it, and how you do it. Not to be too preachy, but here's what I'm doing. Newsflash for those that don't know. You have the opportunity and ability to do whatever you feel. If it's positive, I want to support. If it's negative, I want no parts of it. And when you're right, I'm with you. But I am using this platform to make a difference. So guess what? This is my megaphone to yell and scream as loud as I can to be a difference maker. I'm not saying I want to be Dr. Martin Luther King, but to be like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. as to being a drum major for change. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have your opinion of me regardless of what I do, regardless if I do nothing or I do the most. Your opinion will be your opinion. But one thing I ask you is, what are you doing to make a difference? When it comes to podcasting, there are hundreds and thousands of podcasts created on the hour. There's a lot. It's becoming my favorite thing to do now. So if you've been thinking about it, I'm just encouraging you to do it. Do it. It doesn't matter your age, gender, what you identify yourselves as, just do it. Be the change agent while you're doing it. And let me just say this and I'm out of here. Some people have a team of 10, 20, 30 people that are involved in podcasting. I'll say it again. I'm Dante, also known as Mecca Don, the Don Mecca. Also known as Rick James. Why? Because I'm cold-blooded. There was a lady that I love by the name of Eleanor Graves who taught me at a very young age. She gave me a can. She told me to bring a coffee can. And she said, put the letter I in front of it. And whatever you want to do, you put it inside that. Hey guys, we're in the age of cancel culture, judged by the court of public opinion. And I tried to be as careful as I could today. I am who I am. But if I said something that was out of pocket, if I dropped a noun, an adjective, a pronoun out of place, or even an expletive, you guys know what it is. Don't hold me to it. I'm just here to pod. Until we meet again, guys. Peace.